Good evening. We are pleased to have the Honorable Jeff Leal as our guest speaker at the annual general meeting of the Peterborough Historical Society. A native of Peterborough, Mr. Leal devoted more than 3 decades to public service of Peterborough and its region. Elected city councillor from 1985 to 2003, he was elected member of provincial parliament from 2003 to 2018, finishing his career as Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs with cabinet responsibilities for small business. A highly respected community leader, Jeff Leal is well positioned to reflect on several decades of political history in Ontario and Canada. Welcome, the Honorable Jeff Leal. I shall turn it over to Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thanks very much, Dale. And I want to thank you and Dennis Carter-Edwards for giving me this opportunity to speak about my public life and my service to the county and the city of Peterborough, the province of Ontario, and indeed Canada. My public life spans over 3 decades, basically in 2 chapters. A member of Peterborough City Council from 1985 until 2003, and a member of the provincial parliament from 2003 until 2018. There are 5 events in my life that would profoundly shape my character and my approach to public life. The birth of my younger brother Ted in 1959 with Down syndrome, failing grade 2 as a result of learning difficulties. I could neither read nor write. My Roman Catholic faith, meeting Prime Minister Pearson as a Cub Scout in 1968, and marriage to my wife Karen in 1994, and the birth of our son Braden in 1998, and our daughter Shanae in 1999. And Karen and I are both extremely proud that Braden will be graduating in a couple weeks from Trent University with his honors degree in environmental and resource science from Trent. And our daughter Shanae, again, will be graduating in a couple of weeks from Laurier University with her honors degree in communications with a concentration in digital media. So Braden and Shanae will both start their journey in life over the next couple of weeks. Events 1 and 2. The birth of my brother Ted with Down syndrome, as I've indicated, in 1959, and failing grade 2 because of learning difficulties, shaped my understanding and empathy for families that had children with challenges, children with learning difficulties, children with autism, and parents that had adopted children with fetal alcohol syndrome, and the need to provide supports to nurture development and foster success for these children and families. My liberal roots can be traced to an introduction to Prime Minister Pearson in January of 1968. Mr. Pearson was Canada's Prime Minister from 1963 to 1968. He attended school in Peterborough, where his father was a minister at George Street United Church. When he renounced his retirement from politics in late 1967, his farewell tour across Canada would include stops where his father was assigned as a minister. After encountering Mr. Pearson, I decided to do some research in his career. He was a veteran of World War I with the Royal Canadian Air Force, distinguished diplomat, Minister of External Affairs, and a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and of course, Prime Minister. During his 5 years as Prime Minister in a minority parliament, his government was considered one of the most productive in Canada's history. The new flag, the Canada Pension Plan, the Canada Assistance Plan, negotiations with all 10 provinces to bring in Medicare from C to C to C. The distinguished Canadian author, Peter C. Newman, described the Pearson years as government like this. It looked like pieces were flying about in all directions. And at some point, Mike Pearson would put them all together in a coherent way. But by that time, the Canadian public was so exhausted, there was never any celebration. As Mr. Pearson demonstrated, I came to believe, but by collective action, you strengthen the foundations for every individual. A constant reminder of why we all serve in public life. Over the next number of years, I would finish high school at Kenner Collegiate, where I was elected student council president from 1973 to 1974. I completed my honors BA at Trent University in economics and politics and obtained my degree in business from the University of Windsor. I continued to volunteer with a number of organizations to widen my knowledge and understanding of our community. In 1982, at age 27, I decided to run an autonomy award, the city's South End, for a seat on Peterborough City Council. We had a very small band of campaign workers and finished a respectable fourth with 1,216 votes. Every experience in life provided lessons to apply for future endeavors. In the 1985 municipal election, both incumbents retired. There were 2 open seats in the autonomy ward. A larger, much betterized campaign and canvas team, success, and a 30-year-old was on his way to City Hall to start a journey that would last 18 years. During my first term of council, and there were 3 years in those days, I got some great advice from 2 personal friends who are veteran city councilors, Jack Doris and Glenn Padgett. Their advice was, listen carefully, ask questions, and find out how the place operates. That advice, I believe, was the foundation of my success in municipal politics. Over those 18 years, I chaired social services twice, dealing with individuals and families who found themselves in very difficult situations. The goal was always trying to put an individual or a family on a new path. I want to share a story about one very successful initiative that came out in those years. A company called AmeriCredit, which is now called General Motors Credit, was a call center and established in Peterborough, dealing with what I would consider one of the most difficult jobs in life, dealing with individuals who had delinquent car loans. In fact, they would call them up to try to get them back to start paying their loans in a timely fashion. A staff member at City Hall by the name of Deb Keating, she was the manager of employment services. She felt that this would be an excellent opportunity for individuals who are on Ontario Works or other support programs to go through a life skills training program to be ready for work. A number of these individuals secured employment with AmeriCredit, and many of them still have those jobs today. It was a great initiative that proved successful for a new path forward for many. During my time in municipal politics, I participated in 18 budgets, 5 official plan reviews, and 5 transportation studies. From 1997 to 2003, I served as second deputy mayor. One of the lasting life lessons from municipal politics is that small things really matter. Garbage pickup that was missed, a street light burnt out, a crack or a pothole that needs to be fixed. The ability to resolve small matters is the key to success for many people at that level of government. In the 1990s, the provincial government of the day started to download many services to municipalities. A good example of this is housing, which is still being debated, discussed, and dealt with by our municipality today. More and more property taxes were being asked to support activities that were income redistribution in nature and should be funded through income taxes. I wanted to change this trend. And the only way to accomplish this would be to enter politics at the provincial level. In 1999, I secured the provincial Liberal nomination to run in this riding and lost that election by 2,600 votes. One of the issues of that campaign was support for public education. And I was helped immensely on that file by my wife, Karen, a teacher who I'd married in 1994. And I would like to note in 2017, my wife, Karen, was selected one of the 40 outstanding principals in Canada, which shows that she had a remarkable career in education. As I did in 1982, my defeat in 1999 would be a positive learning experience to set the stage for the 2003 provincial election. In 2003, I was successful and started my next journey for 15 years, having the wonderful privilege of representing over 120,000 constituents of Peterborough riding. With the election of Premier McGuinty, I got to sit in my seat for the first time during the delivery of the speech from the throne. Well, I did my very best to listen to the words of the Lieutenant Governor of the province of Ontario. I kept looking around the chamber and was thinking what a very special place this is, and what a very small number of men and women from 1867 to 2003 had the privilege of being in that chamber. I remember the first time like it was yesterday, when the Speaker of the Ontario Legislature called upon the honorable member from Peterborough to ask a question. Right after my election in 2003, a group of community leaders came forward. I often refer to them as my kitchen cabinet. We quietly put together a list of 4 pillars that needed to be advanced on behalf of every resident in this community. Number 1 would be the building of a new regional hospital. Number 2 would be the continued investment in Tring University. Number 3 would be the investment in Fleming College. And number 4 would be working with the county and city of Peterborough to renew and expand Peterborough Regional Airport. The work on these 4 pillars reflected a fundamental community success. The building of the Peterborough Regional Healthcare Center, the Health Science Building for Tring University, the Kawartha Trades and Technology Center for Fleming, and the redevelopment of Peterborough Airport, Peterborough Regional Airport, considered the very best airport now between Pearson and Ottawa. Along the way, we would work on many other projects. At Queen's Park, I spent my early years understanding how the legislature operated. During this time, I was also appointed parliamentary assistant to the ministers of training colleges and universities, economic development and trade, environment, energy, and Aboriginal affairs. From 2010 to 2013, I served as chief government whip. Perhaps the best way to describe that is like being a vice principal in a high school, looking after attendance of members. Well, you're told that the dog didn't eat the homework. Members could come up with very interesting stories why they couldn't be in the legislature on any particular day. 2009, I was also appointed as a member of the Select Committee of Mental Health and Addictions. In August of 2009, the committee had the opportunity to visit Kashechewan, Apawapiskat, and Sandy Lake. I must say, for a middle-class kid from Peterborough, to visit those three communities that we've heard about far too often in the national news media, to see the poverty, to see the challenges, to see the despair, a part of our nation, this Canada, a G7 nation, a nation of wealth and a nation of prosperity, to see what I can only describe as third world conditions. I think that experience, and I think about it often, impressed upon me the ongoing need for absolute reconciliation with our Aboriginal peoples. This is our responsibility. This is the Canadian responsibility. I recall as I was leaving Sandy Lake, the chief of Sandy Lake came up to me and said, "Mr. Leal, do you have children?" I said, "Yes. Karen and I have a son and a daughter." He handed me 2 sets of moccasins, one for Braden and one for Sinead. And the chief said to me, "I give you these so that you'll never forget." And every time I would see our son or daughter wear them here at home, I always remember my experience at Sandy Lake. Because as the chief said, your committee will fly away in your aircraft. You will go back to Toronto. You will write your report. But I want to make sure that you never will forget us. So that is something that will always, always be with me. That experience of that August of the year 2009. In the winter of 2013, my life as the MPP from Peterborough was about to change dramatically. Premier McGuinty retired, a very civil leadership campaign takes place, and Kathleen Wynne becomes the new leader and Premier of Ontario. I did not support Kathleen Wynne at that leaders convention. I actually support another opponent, another colleague, Sandra Pupatello. I should have figured that something was in the works because the Premier designate, as she was known then, had called me for a lengthy conversation in early February of 2013. It was about 7 days after this conversation that on the Sunday afternoon, I will never forget, February 10th, 4 p.m. in the afternoon, I received a telephone call from the chief of the Premier's transition team that I was being asked to be at Queen's Park at 9 a.m. the next morning to be sworn into the Ontario Cabinet as a Minister for Rural Affairs. In 48 hours, my world changed. I would be given an opportunity like none other. After the 2014 general election, I would be given additional responsibilities for agriculture, food, and rural affairs. And in March of 2017, I'd also be named minister responsible for small business in this province of Ontario. The period from 2013 to June of 2018 were some of my most productive and satisfying times in public life. I had the opportunity to lead an agriculture trade mission to China in 2015, India in 2016, represent Ontario at the final round of negotiations of the Trans-Pacific Partnership in Atlanta in September of 2015, 3 rounds of NAFTA renegotiations in 2017, twice in Mexico City, once in Montreal. And I also embarked on a goodwill tour of 7 American states in 2017, promoting the NAFTA relationship between Ontario and those 7 states. And I just want to note that this is not widely known often in Ontario, but agriculture and agri-food processing is the largest contributor to Ontario's GDP, over $38.5 billion. It employs over 800,000 Ontarians and is indeed larger than the auto sector. Ontario is in a unique position with climate change to help feed the world. The United Nations has told us by the year 2050, there will be 9 billion people to feed. When I was in China in the spring of 2015, the delegation's last stop was in Hong Kong. I got to meet and present a medal on behalf of the government of Canada to Peter Choi, who was then in his mid-90s and was president of the Hong Kong Veteran Association and fought alongside those brave Canadians in the futile defense of Hong Kong in December of 1941. As I visited the Commonwealth Cemetery that overlooks the Bay of Victoria, I stopped at one gravesite. Tears started to roll down my face. The gravestone was for Private DuPont from Pembroke, Ontario. He joined the Royal Rifles of Canada in September of 1939. He was 16 years old. He was killed Christmas Eve, 1941, at age 18. Same age as my son Braden. Private DuPont would never experience again a Canadian sunrise nor a Canadian sunset. I've always said that we spend a lot of money on education in all the provinces and indeed in Canada. I believe it should be mandatory that every school-age child in Canada go and visit a Canadian war cemetery. In 2013, my son Braden and I got a chance to tour Sicily with the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment as part of the commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the landing in Sicily, and visit the Canadian War Cemetery at Agira. There are 450 young Canadians that are buried there. I just want to close with some observations about the current state of our democracy. The growth and use of social media has created a very toxic and polarized political environment, where compromise was once seen as an enduring trait in building communities. Social media has turned compromise, unfortunately, into a sign of weakness. All of us as citizens of Canada, with responsibilities and obligations that the late Tom Simons used to talk about, need to take some time and do what we can to turn this around in a hurry. Because if we don't turn around in a hurry, we're going to see a continuous decline in participation in a democracy that Private DuPont laid his life down for way back in Hong Kong in 1941. Or those 450 Canadians that are buried in Agira, Sicily. Thanks again for this invitation to speak. I've tried to share with you some highlights of the past 3 decades of my Peterborough life and my Peterborough journey. Will there be a 3rd chapter? I don't know. But as a wise person once observed, you never close any doors behind you.
Thanks so much. Those are some great insights.
Yeah.
And what it tells me, the depth there of your experience is it entices me to invite you again on other occasions at some point to plumb some of those experiences and enlighten us in other ways. So thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you. It was a real honor to have the opportunity to chat with you this evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time.
Not at all.
Good.